Hey guys, we're back on aircraft again this week. This time we're going to be looking at Minicraft's H-4 Hercules kit and TWA markings as a theoretical had they actually built her and used her type of kit. Let's open her on up and take a look. A little tight on the box, but okay. So, to begin, we're going to start here with our sprue containing all of our props, our engines, horizontal stabilators, and the outer wing pontoons. So as a little sign, as well as some additional detail parts for the engines. Now, despite the small scale, it's overall not that bad a kit. You know, it is an older kit that they've reboxed, but the details, for the most part, are there. There's no real, jump out and bite you issues, save for maybe there needing to be more detailing in the engines. But in this small scale, it's debatable how much more detail you could realistically do without it being overscale. Only thing I could think of is, snapping a photo and then creating a decal out of that for use on the engine fronts to mimic the radial engines. That would be the only thing I could think of doing that would make sense in scale without being an absolute bear or cost prohibitive to do. Beyond that, only main issue I found with here is a fair amount of flashing. Obviously, again, older kit that they've reboxed with new decals, so molds are probably getting up there in age. And obviously you can see it here more than anywhere else on this sprue, but yeah, that is something that's going to need some cleanup. Moving on to the fuselage halves, we get these two freestanding halves. There is very little surface detail, at least along the side. Now, I believe some of this is because they are basing it on the original prototype and not in any type of in-service theoretical aircraft. So this will make aligning the decals, specifically the windows, a little bit more challenging, simply because you have fewer references to go with. So I'm definitely going to tell you now, this is probably something you want to take some time, make sure you're getting it straight and level and symmetrical. That's going to be a bear to do, but you're going to have to do it. Now, as far as fit goes, which since they are pre-cut, give me 1 second, get them together, is not too terrible. Again, this is just me doing a rough friction fit. It's not that bad. I've seen worse, I've seen better. It's okay. Obviously, I would definitely recommend just going a little bit at a time with your glue, laying that set up, and then move to the next section. Continuing on now to the wings, much the same story as with the fuselage. Again, fit's not the worst, not the best, but it's serviceable. Now, one thing to note is that there's no actual peg for attaching the engines onto. You're just sort of going to wrap it around the entire extension from the wing. This is another area you're going to want to take some time and be very careful with to make sure you're getting everything aligned. This is probably going to be an area you'll want to dry fit and do a couple practice runs with, just to make sure you get it right. Because if it's out of alignment, you're going to easily be able to tell. Since, again, we do have 8 engines on this thing, if one's out of alignment, it's going to be very obvious. Now, moving on to the clear parts, I'm going to skip over the second wing. These parts popped out on their own. These make up the stand that's included with the kit, which is a nice inclusion, especially for something like this, as your two options are going to be either pose it in flight or do some type of diorama with it parked at a shore ramp. But obviously not everyone's going to do that, so it's nice to have that options. Now, as for the cockpit overall, this single piece, which is the entirety of all the internal viewable clear parts are included, I would say it's good, especially for the scale. Though since nothing is going to be visible, I would probably recommend doing a heavy coat of clear black just to block it out so you can't see anything. Which, obviously, without any type of cockpit detailing or anything like that, does make it kind of pointless to have the insides viewable. Now, if you're a little crazy, you could obviously scratch build all that, but I digress. Now, moving on to the decals. We'll get this very, very shiny sheet of TWA markings. Now, this is one area I am going to take umbrage with this kit on. I really don't care for the shiny windows. I get what they were trying to do, but personally, I think it looks a little tacky and just it doesn't work for me personally. Some people might like it, but for me, it's definitely a pass. Now, I do think the decals are printed very well. You typically don't see high shine metallic decals that often. So that is a plus. Now, we are given only a single marking option, but we're given everything we need to do to basically do this as a civil airliner. Beyond that, since it is a theoretical, can't comment to accuracy, but one would assume it would match the period. Moving on to the instructions. Assembly starts with building up the wings and control surfaces, as well as the engines. Again, take your time, make sure alignment on them is correct, because it's an easy area to mess things up, and believe me, it will stick out like a sore thumb. But other than that, it's a very simple build of a kit. Not that many parts, not that much that's going to go into it. Now, I do question if you will need the nose weight. If you're going to use the display stand, that's one of those. It's going to come down to just individual preference. Personally, I would say it might be a good idea just to keep some weight in it, just to help balance it, even on a stand, which again is pretty straightforward assembly. As for the markings and paint options, again, single all-natural metal aircraft. The one point I will point out that they don't include is any type of anti-glare panel here on the nose. I would recommend, might be a good idea to go ahead and just mask that area off and create one yourself, since, if you're following the scheme, the underside's going to be black anyway. It's not that difficult to mask off a little area in front of the windscreen to serve as that panel. So, overall, what do I think? Despite its age, I think it's a decent kit. Now, I will say you want to be careful making sure everything's aligned, because just from the little friction fitting I did there, you can tell there may be some issues. But just take it slow, and it shouldn't give you that many problems. Beyond that, it's an interesting kit, because, obviously, since it is a hypothetical, you don't typically see that. And again, with the shiny decals, plus probably a high shine finish, definitely will be a standout piece. So that was a look at Minicraft's 1/200 scale H-4 Hercules in TWA markings. Kit that you need to take some time, make sure you're getting everything aligned right, but once built, should build up to a real showstopper. So, until next time.